My name is Sarah.
My name is Mujib.
And welcome to another episode of Let's Get To It. Is this episode 30?
This is episode 30.
I had to ask. This is episode 30, and it's affectionately titled, How It Started, How's It Going? I had to really think about how to say that. How it started, how it's going. So, Mujib, how'd it start?
It was all a dream.
All right, biggie.
Yeah, totally. Actually, I was thinking about this the other day because where I'm currently living, I can see the ridge from where I used to live. And so if I look north, I can see this big ridge, and we called it the ridge. That's where we lived. And that's where it started. Like, that's where North Country Kettlebell started. The first photographs of me doing anything are all at the base of that ridge. I used to sit out on my deck and write my plans up looking at the ridge. I used to go for walks on the ridge for inspiration and all those things. And so especially now, like coming into the springtime, which is when I was really making a lot of the plans come to actually become solid, I look at that ridge and I'm like, wow, like that's really where it started. And if I can send some energetic, encouragement to my past self, kind of through the universal waves,
Yeah.
I'm shooting them that way and saying like, hey bro, like it's gonna work. Everything that you're writing down is gonna come to pass. And so stay with it. Cause like I was, I don't know, like we talked a little bit about like the origin stories of everything in episode 1.
Yeah.
But like to dive deep into it, like I was really bad off when I first started North Country Kettlebells. I didn't have I wasn't really working at all. I was like running through my savings. Like I didn't really have anything. I'm pretty sure, full disclosure, I think I had a trash bag for a shower curtain. You know what I mean? Like that level of like pinching every single cent that I had to try to figure out how to make my life work. I don't think I had a driver's license, right? Like I gotten a couple big tickets in Massachusetts for speeding. Lost my driver's license. Yeah, totally. And it's like you have this in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Vermont, there's like, if you lose your license in one of those states, and you lose your license in all those states. And so I didn't know that. So I lost my license from speeding. And
I didn't know that either, actually.
Yeah.
There's
so
that reciprocity there. Watch out, everybody.
Yeah, Massachusetts tickets, watch out. You'll get pulled over someday and have to go sleep somewhere else, maybe. But either way, like, yeah, I was just bad off. I didn't have a car, nothing. So I like to send myself back those good vibes and let myself know like, hey, like go for it. Because North Country Kettlebells was like it was my shot in the dark. It was my like last straw. Like if this doesn't work, then fuck this, I'm leaving. Like, you know what I mean? Like I tried so many things, and I had tried so hard to turn my life into a direction that it needed to go. Before that, I was doing a lot of things that I didn't really agree with and wouldn't agree with now. If I saw myself to do them, I'd tell myself to stop. And so North Country Kettlebells was really my way of changing the direction for myself. So that's really how it started, was just sitting on some deck, pretty much shooting prayers out into the dark, trying to figure out if I was going to be able to do this thing.
Wow. And then you're staring at the same ridge.
Yeah, so now I stare at the same ridge. I can see it out of my bathroom window when I wake up in the morning, that sort of thing.
You know what's creepy and cool about that story
that?
For you is I have found myself back on Pine Street. And for those of you, I'm referencing Pine Street in Burlington, Vermont. And that's where Rev started, was on Pine Street. And I'm back there in a very different capacity, but it's still like en route, to the next big thing. So it's not a negative. It's just funny that we've kind of come full circle,
right. And
you're staring at sort of that ridge, and it's taking you back, and I'm back on the street where it all started. And yeah, it's kind of making me think of the whole, like, never forget where you came from kind of, and it's woven into us. And like you said, part of our energetics and part of our being. It's just part of that journey. So it's really interesting how for both of us, the sort of original whatever is sort of, we're kind of in the vicinity of that, but like still the trajectory is still moving us forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I think
Yeah.
about like if I think about like a circle, right? But more like a spiral in that
Mm-hmm.
set. So like, like I might come back to the same sort of place, but am I on the same level actually that I was when I was here last, And also like how much more information have I brought back with me to this period of time? And I really love the energetics of it, because then I can really imagine that I'm sending that energy to myself in the past, but then I can also imagine that I'm getting that energy from the future. Like my future self is sending that energy to me. It's letting me know to keep it going, that it's going to work, that the dream is going to happen, that the thing that I'm working on right now and the reason why I'm working on it right now is going to turn into the thing that I want it to become. And so I try to kind of get that from both directions, in every direction that I can, that there's because sometimes the inspiration seems crazy. Like,
Right.
why am I up in the morning doing this thing? Is anybody going to see this? Is anybody going to jump on this? Am I just still a shot in the dark? Um, and so sometimes I need to remember that, like, that inspired voice is actually, the fact that we're timeless beings. Like, I'm already in eternity. It's so whatever between now and then is just me being able to understand if I can send messages back on the line or not.
Oh, I just got this imagery of an upward spiral, as you're talking about that. And I want to put that out there, because I think everybody always talks about the downward spiral. I don't hear anyone talking about an upward spiral, but I'd like to think that we're on one. And, yeah, I don't know. I just got that visual of kind of that spinning upwards, and that you are circling back to these previous locations. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
It's not random.
Right. How do you feel about it all these days? Like how it started?
How it started, how it's going. It's funny. I think back to, we've had so many conversations that deal with these things. And I've been thinking a lot about, measurements for success and how people would measure success. And, someone may look at my situation currently, which is, if you've been following the podcast, you're kind of up on things. If you're new to the podcast, first of all, welcome. And if you're new to the podcast, real quick, I'll just mention that, I've grown from a small indoor cycling studio to got fairly large, and expanded into other modalities of fitness. And then, as COVID has sort of continued, I have given up this very large physical footprint of a studio. And when I think about that, people from the outside looking in may think, oh, like that's too bad. Like that's a negative, or that's some kind of failure, or I'm on the downward spiral, so to speak, right? Like coming down from having achieved X amount. And I'm very happy with the fact that I don't see it that way. And so I'm in a different place, not one that I had necessarily envisioned for myself or thought I would be, but I'm in a kind of creative incubator, and I'm working on things that I never thought that I might have had the time to work on. And I think it's like, I'm sharpening my steel, and I'm going to be back in another physical capacity, and something that's pretty grand and pretty awesome. And so, yeah, I've just kind of been thinking about that. And so much of it is our own perspective and set of beliefs, and how we see our own scenario. Like one person may say like, oh, that's such a tragedy, like, or really apply these sort of like negative terminology to it. And I don't see it, or I'm not experiencing that as such. And maybe that's by choice or by design or whatever. But I'm in a way thankful that I can get to be working through some different mediums, of testing out the virtual stuff, testing out what it is that I like doing, what do I not like doing. When I kind of reinvent the studio, what do I want to change? It's going to look different.
Mhm.
And that's a good thing. It's going to be
Totally.
different.
Totally.
So I
Yeah.
don't know. That's kind of what we know where, and that's, I'm glossing over like some of the really hard days. So that's not to say that like I haven't had moments of like agony, despair, confusion, frustration,
Mhm,
checking the bank
mhm.
account, like what's going on.
Yeah.
Um, but overall, like my overarching like understanding of the whole thing is that like it's going to be all right.
Mhm,
And that kind
mhm.
of also touches back to the fact that we talk about faith a lot,
Yeah.
you know, having this faith in that um there's a lot more to be written in my story, and it's like the spiral is trending up.
Mhm, mhm,
So
mhm.
this is part of the journey, the learning
Right.
journey.
Yeah. And you get to take all these other aspects that you wouldn't have planned on otherwise, you know. It's like I think about that even just with the podcast, and even going from being a solely audio podcast to now having this visual effect as well, and this the visual element,
Mm-hmm.
and learning how to do that. I think both of us have aspirations to reach a broader range and to reach a broader market. And we talked about this in the last episode as far as common threads and thinking globally, and trying to understand that there are people that want what we have to offer all over the world, and either are trying to find it and can't find it, or are touching on it but not quite getting it. And so, you know, you said this actually on Tuesday after our session, like there are billions of people on the planet, and you know, there have to be a number of hundreds of thousands who aren't necessarily getting the service that they need to be getting. And so, you know, to have something that can stop us dead in our tracks and say, now you have to think bigger if you still want to keep going in this direction. You're going to have to like expand your own thinking, and especially in a time when we are downsizing physically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like you you in your situation that you're explaining to me, and me in my own situation in life, there's like this downsizing of the physical space,
Right.
the stuff that we have, the number of classes that we're offering, like all those things are kind of going down. But at the same time, our mentalities and our own ideas of what is possible and what we're going to be able to do and what we want to get into and what we might be able to get into, and even like that there might be something out there that we haven't seen yet, is
Mm-hmm.
just expanding more and more and more and more every single day. And so um so I love that dichotomy.
Oh my God. Yeah. Even just to hear you frame it that way, like makes me feel so much better too about the whole thing. Like, yeah, there is a downsizing that's happening, yet there's this expansion. Like there's a downsizing of almost like the physical. There's an expansion of like the, you know, the mind or the psychic mind or something, you know. I feel that shift too. An expansion of really even letting in like what's possible um is exciting. So yeah. No, I love that. I love that.
Totally, totally.
Yeah.
uh, yeah.
Yeah. What are you working on like currently? Like where are you? I'm excited to if you feel
Mhm.
like so inclined to share.
Oh, totally, totally.
Yeah.
Um, well, I've had this video project in mind for a long time. As far as, you know, my main focus always has been to try to teach people how to use kettlebells in a comprehensive way. So when I first started, like nobody really even knew what kettlebells were. Like I would go into a gym and 90% of the people had no idea what I was talking about. Or, you know, there would be one coach that knew what I was talking about, or maybe two that knew that there was this training modality. But like as far as Central Vermont went, I knew when I found out about them, I didn't have any idea that they existed before that. And I kept running into people that had no idea what they were either. And so my goal was always to try to figure out, because I benefited so much from the progressive training. Like I, in the year's time, went from using a 35-pound kettlebell to using a 70-pound kettlebell. And so I wanted everybody to feel that power, you know,
Mm,
and it made me feel powerful in that way. So I wanted to be able to say, like, I can show you there's a missing link to allowing you that you don't necessarily understand, that's going to allow you to get from this weight to that next weight. And so I'm going to try to figure out how to articulate that missing link, and I'm going to figure out how to present myself in a way that allows you to take me up on what I'm offering. And so it's always been about trying to figure out like how to do that more and more and more. And so, you know, pre-pandemic, we got to a point where the stride was great. Like I hooked up with you all at Rev, and the message was spreading even further. More people are like, wow, there's really more to this thing. I feel like everybody that ever came to like a RevX kettlebell class was like, oh, there's so much more to know than I ever thought. And
Yeah, that was like such a huge takeaway. People, yeah.
And that was that's always been my goal, is to help people see like there's more to know about this thing than you do know. There are more movements than just the swing. There's more that we're thinking about when we're doing presses and all these other movements. Like there's just a greater expanse of knowledge that you can gain from trying to get into this thing. And so that's where I am now, that like mid-pandemic, that we're at this point where how do I get the word out there? And so I transitioned doing a lot of videos, and in my way, my videos, when everything was just with the cell phone pre-pandemic, it was easy enough to be like, oh, there's a cell phone video of me talking about a press. But now trying to present something to the people so that it looks good, so that it's visually appealing, so that it has information, and then how to get that information out there in a way that is comprehensive, so that you can watch a video, hear 5 pointers, and go back and try them with your kettlebell and actually be a better kettlebell lifter than you were before. And so that's what I'm working on now. I have a multi-tier plan, essentially, of just coming out with these videos that have a little bit more information. So the first tier came out recently. They're just the kind of green background. They're the videos that we shot in Rev. And so it's like the green backdrop wall, and it's just like single angle. Here's me doing some kettlebell movements. There's no explanation at all. You'd click on it and be like, oh, kettlebell alternating goblet lunge. What's that? I'm gonna watch him do it. Oh, maybe I can do that too. And then I'll grab my kettlebell and do it. So it's just like simple 26 videos of stuff to do with your kettlebell.
We'll say simple 26 videos, but that took a lot of work.
Oh yeah, totally. And so, and you know, that is only what I opened up to the public. For my actual like online clientele have access to the full video library. So when they get workout sent to them, they get, you know, every movement has a video attached to it, and so on and so forth. So so tier 2 is kind of like just some quick little explanations of some of these things that you're seeing in these videos. Tier 3 is a greater explanation of those things. So tier 2 is like a 1-minute trailer video, essentially, to like tier 3, which is like a 5-minute video. And then tier 4 is more of like the personalized program. So like if you were in South Africa or something like that and you wanted to train with me, we might train via Zoom or via whatever platform that we're going to use. But then you'll also in your inbox get a series of videos that explain everything that we're talking about. So if we talk about the snatch in person, I can watch you doing the snatch, and I can give you all the pointers necessary to doing the snatch, and you can hear everything that I'm saying. And there's going to be a lot that's happening in real time that's going to allow you to be able to glean the information that I'm trying to deliver to you. And then each session also, you're going to learn a little bit more. And so to do that virtually would take a lot more time than the 45 minutes to an hour that somebody's trying to allot to training. So to also be able to give these physical representations. So tier 4 is essentially taking that 5-minute video and then showing all of the different angles. So whereas tier 3 is like a kettlebell snatch, it's a 6-minute video of me explaining the kettlebell snatch, it's still only from one angle. Tier 4, we're looking at the hand insertion, we're looking at the path that the kettlebell's traveling, where's the kettlebell going on the backswing, how am I breathing? And there's a short, like 3-minute video attached to each one of those components. And so that's my current, and I'm having a fun time doing it. I had to get a new machine to do it. I had to get some new programs that I'm learning how to use, and some new editing software, and a bunch of new equipment just to figure out how to deliver what I'm delivering. And so for me,
that speaks to how many of us that are content creators or have had to figure out like how to be our own video editors, producers, directors. Like,
but it's awesome because you just said it, it's that content creation, and this is kind of where I'll stop, because I can ramble on about this forever, but it is that content creation. And if as an entrepreneur who's working digitally, trying to get trying to build the market base, or trying to get my clients to grow, my client base to grow. It's a lot about trying to deliver valuable information and valuable content. And so this had to be done anyway, but
Right.
now I just have the time to do it.
Yeah, that's how I've been able to kind of think about a lot of this too, is I had digital content, fitness content on my mind for a couple of years before COVID. But usually what was stopping me was, oh, I'm running a really busy in-person studio 7 days a week. When possibly is there time, like Friday night at 10 o'clock at night? So thankfully, I don't know.
Right.
To the, the universe has said, okay, we're going to push pause on this other thing, and you can go ahead and dive in and see what you think about this other thing. And it's a lot of work. I mean, I know, being someone that's also done a lot of video content creation, it's a lot of work. And then all the back end stuff, like it's, my appreciation has grown for all kinds of things. Like now, knowing what goes into it all, what it takes and the time, and every you're super detail oriented, like just the detail orientedness of it, like to get the lighting right, and to, what are you, to be succinct and direct, and, what are you saying? Is there music overlay? Like the whole packaging of it.
Totally.
You had a cool drop I've noticed lately too on your Instagram, come a little bit more about like your coaching philosophy stuff, which I've enjoyed.
Awesome.
Some of
That's
those
great.
drops.
I
So
love that feedback.
yeah. I think it's, I'm in this marketing class, and what a recurring theme is often like, what do you have to offer, and what makes you unique to the world, and like expressing that. And I know you and I have kind of talked about this when we talk a lot about rap artists, and in particular, and artists who have a point of view, have something to say, and maybe say it differently than what's popular, right? And so I think that's, this time for me too has been like an exploration of that, getting to know myself more, expressing myself authentically. And that's one of the reasons I love this podcast, and some of the feedback that I've heard from folks is just they appreciate our candor and conversation, and just, this is it. This is who we are. And you don't have to like it or agree with either of us all the time, but we appreciate all of our listeners, and just hopefully, people are just getting a slice of who we are, and the freedom to be able to express that. I'm so appreciative of this medium. Just, just shoot the shit, as they say.
Totally.
It's like
I
an
love it.
really old saying.
It's a timeless saying.
I just timeless. I said to somebody, kick the can down the road earlier today. Did I say that to you?
No.
Did I say kick the can?
No.
Okay. Again, I'm losing my mind in the box that is Zoom. But yeah. Where am I going with this? But yeah, where it started, how it's going. I mean, it's going. I think
Yeah.
one thing I want to say, and it's relational to what we're talking about. I really appreciate that you just said mid-pandemic, that we are mid-pandemic. I actually want to highlight that, because there's quite a few people that think that, we're on the off ramp.
Wow.
And I don't think we're on the off ramp. I mean, I don't know where everybody's living and how they're living, but I think you're fairly accurate to say mid.
Right.
So I appreciate that. I just wanted to.
But it's the truth. I'm a realist when it comes to that type of stuff, and it's spider just literally dropped off the ceiling right in front of me. So I'm trying to gather what that information is supposed to mean.
We're live, so
right.
Like, for those of you that aren't watching, Mujib is collecting spider webs.
Right, and now I have a friend here. I want to tip the camera down, but I'm not gonna. He just ran under my computer anyway. Either way, so, but yeah, that is just it. When I think globally, when I think about what I'm seeing happening all over the world, it doesn't seem like things are really, with a virus, it runs and it finds where it needs to go and hide out. And then
Yeah.
when this dies down, it tries to come back and gets, does all those different things that it does to stay alive, just like anybody else is going to do to try to stay alive. And so I think that will be, yeah, it started in 2019. I don't think by 2021 we're going to see the end of it. I mean, 10 years from now, we can talk about, oh, remember that pandemic of 2019? But, you know, it's not something that we're out of yet. And
Yeah. It's well, India India, it's raging, and
yeah.
they just posted the most cases they've ever had, and I think that is the difference between, we're diverging a little bit, but this is what happens when we get together. Of I think about the two of us, because we do consider ourselves global citizens, and we think more broadly about the world than currently where each one of us is sitting. That, yeah, I mean, there are many countries around the world that do not have the vaccine
Right.
to administer yet. So
Right.
for folks to be talking about like, oh yeah, the end is in sight, we're almost out of it, is actually incredibly narrow-minded.
Yeah.
It's just it like negates the fact that this is a global pandemic. And
Right.
so yeah, just thinking about that, and how that actually, how our own, because we see it as such, how that informs our daily decision making and the work that we're doing. If I thought that this we were just about out of this pandemic, I might be making different choices about my business model, what I'm doing, how I'm choosing to go about my day. And I don't see it that way either. So it's like I'm on a different timeline.
Right. Do you see me
I'm on the
tracking this spider
mid-pandemic
around in
timeline.
my eyes?
What did you say?
I was asking if you can really see me tracking this spider around. It like was on my mic for a little while and it crawled down and it's all over.
We have
Very
Mujib and I
rarely
have
does
been
that happen.
talking about bringing in guests.
Right. There's the spider.
So the spider is the first guest on Let's Get to It. Let's ask it how it started and how it's going.
Right. How did it start? How's it going?
Well, it started on a spider web, and now God knows he's on the floor.
Right. Oh God. No, I mean, and that's also something with the pandemic, is like how it started, how it's going at this point. And even in Vermont, it's like we still see higher numbers. Like month of February was still the highest when February hit. Month of March was the most since before March. Like
Yeah.
maybe we'll start to see a downturn in the summertime, but I doubt it. Like I don't know, but I think that what we do is that we learn how to exist within it.
Yeah.
And that's what becomes different. Like you think about Rev closed down, they shut the state down when there was 35 cases a day. Now
Right.
there's like well over 100 cases a day, and we're all about to go back to the bars and the restaurants and shows and everything like that. And so, we have this adaptation that happens, not in the way that we have any more immunity. There's no herd immunity or anything like that, but people now understand where we can move, how we can get around, and okay, I'll double mask up, I'll make sure I still restock my hand sanitizer and all those different things, and we continue on how we have been doing, because it's going to keep us all safe and alive, really, when it comes down to it. But yeah, that talk about an unexpected wrench thrown into the program, but now we have a podcast.
Now we have a podcast. And yeah, I just hit my computer. Yeah, we have a podcast, and like that we continue to kind of learn our way through, and it's just so funny because every time we talk, I feel like now we do have a library of work, right? This is the 30th episode. So, we have 30 recorded sessions of our conversations. We've had hundreds, I think at this point, 30 on the record. And that's pretty cool. I do think that that's something. And every subsequent time we talk, I can always thread the needle back to a previous conversation. So even right now I'm thinking about, oh, we have a podcast on adaptation.
Yeah.
We have a podcast on It's Elemental, on, you know, all of these things that I just think that's really cool that we can sort of, it's almost like, you know, you can refer back to chapter 3 because
right.
you know, we were talking about that and each, and I'll say this again for folks that depending on where you're jumping into your let's get to it journey, that these sessions are super organic. I mean, really just out of conversation, we kind of decide which way we're going to go with it, which I love that fluidity of it and the fact that it just feels very much like a river flowing, you know?
Totally.
And I think if it felt like pushing a boulder uphill, it probably wouldn't be this sustaining.
Right. No, totally.
Yeah.
It's fulfilling, you know, it's fulfilling to us. And I think that comes out to the folks who listen to it, is that it also has that another element of just, I don't know if you want to call it sustainability or whatever, but it just adds, as long as it's adding to all of our lives,
Yeah.
you know, I think that once it starts, if ever it would take away from our lives, then that's when it, like you said, it becomes like pushing a boulder up a hill, or it becomes draining. But these conversations, I know, to me, they add to my life because I have this opportunity to expand. Right. And then we have this opportunity to build together. And it's just, and then it goes out into the world and folks have the opportunity to do whatever it is that they're going to do with it. I've reached the point now where folks that I work with will be like, oh, it's like you said in the podcast, you know.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
I love that shit. Like, I love it a lot. And you know, when we talk about like trying to create valuable content, this is another way that we're doing it. We're creating, and obviously it's a conversation, obviously it's a fulfillment that we're both having as individuals, but for the people that are just coming across us as individuals, it's another way to interact with our ideas, with who we are. I love that it is honest, because it gives, this podcast is probably going to give somebody the most honest view of who I am as a trainer, right? You know, more so than even if you watch a video of mine on Instagram or some, you know, 1-minute video on my Vimeo page or something like that. Like, that's, sure, it's going to give you something, but it's curated. Like, I edited it on purpose, you know, like I edited it to say what it says. You can see the cuts. Like, this is unedited. This is, you know, I don't even know if I'm going to edit from the last episode where Kenzie came up the stairs. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, all those different things are going to find their way into the episode. So this is where you're going to see our authentic selves, and to be able to deliver that authentic content to people is just, it's invaluable.
And I think that's what people gravitate to, what they're looking for. And I kind of, as I'm going to veer the car a little bit, but I think about like reality TV. You know, I'm a child of reality television. Being a 37-year-old, I remember watching. I'm gonna forget the name now. MTV show, Real World.
Oh, The Real World, yeah.
The Real World, and I remember at the very sort of beginning of a lot of these shows, and what made them these cultural flashpoints is you felt like you were getting to know these people you felt like you were getting to know them on their terms. Like you were actually like, there was this voyeuristic part of it, but like, oh my God, I'm getting to see reality. And then I like viscerally remember, it was almost like immediately, always after the first season or the first time a show came out, I can't watch beyond like a first season of any, well, I don't watch reality TV anymore anyway, but like when I was sort of in that, because what you could tell started to happen was anything after that first season became formulaic. Whether it worked or it didn't work, or because people saw a version, they were like, oh, okay, I'm gonna be the bitch, or I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna be the hippie dude, or like they became characters and archetypes that people then modeled after. And of course, we know they're heavily scripted and produced and stuff, but there is this sort of like rawness, like I don't know. So it's interesting when you introduce social media and Instagram and suddenly, and Reels and TikTok, and suddenly everyone can sort of be their own mini producers. of their reality show or access to, podcasting. I feel a gravitational pull to the folks that I feel like I'm getting a window into who they are. And not such like a heavily curated, filtered version of someone.
Right.
Like I'm over following the Kardashian family. It's just too, it's too managed.
Right.
And I actually think there was something I quite publicly about like a grandmother. I don't know if it was Kris Jenner's mom took a picture of, I don't know if it was Khloe, and posted it, and it wound up getting circulated, but it didn't have like filters or was curated the right way. And like her publicist or like their management team wanted the video off the internet or the picture or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's messed up.
Uh-huh.
Right? Like if, to get to a spot where you're like, no, the real me can't get out there.
Right.
What? And even we were looking at something the other day after our training session, and I appreciated like, I tend to just follow people that are going to give me this window into their wacky world, because we're all just winging it.
Right. I mean,
even the people that have sort of the curated setup, like they're winging it. Just some people have, help to make it look like they're not.
Right.
I don't know. I prefer the
authenticity.
The raw.
Again, the raw. Yeah, that's what it is.
Baby, I like it raw.
Totally. Yeah. Gotta take it to that shimmy, y'all. You have to.
Shimmy, y'all, shimmy. Okay. We're gonna start a band. We're gonna start a political podcast.
Yeah, just let this thing drag on a little longer. We'll have all these different elements, and that's what happens too. It's like you get 30 episodes into a podcast, and maybe people are like, when are you guys going to talk about this, or oh, it would be awesome if blah blah blah, and so there is endless opportunity for evolution when something is that raw and is that authentic and is that real, and we're trying to be that real, and it's never going to be a different you on the other side of the mic, you know what I mean?
I hope not.
We had to replace Sarah with some of this is Let's Get to It 2.0 with Mujib and Stacy, or Sarah and Akil, you know what I mean? Like I don't
there are
think
no
we have
stand-ins.
the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
And so you have this I love how I pulled those names just out of nowhere. Like
Stacy and Shaquille, was that it?
Yeah, something like Akil. Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like a show. We got to go find a Stacy and a Shaquille.
But no, I mean, even that, like how it started versus how it's going, even with this, like this podcast started just like that, like as two people that wanted to have conversations that brought our own conversations to the people that we didn't have a chance to interact with on a regular basis because of the shutdown, and because we weren't able to interact with our client bases. I don't think that you even really had outdoor classes going at the time. I was still on total shutdown mode at the time, and was really just working on these videos. And so now the podcast itself has grown to this place where now we're getting a chance to see what it's doing mid-pandemic life and post-pandemic life. What is it going to do, and what is this going to offer up the opportunity for somebody to see and to say like, oh, okay, let me check out this person and see what they've got going on. Oh wow, they've got a podcast, let me jump into some random episode and listen. Oh wow, this person really has something to say, maybe I want them to host something bigger. And maybe we're looking for new talent. I'm looking for new talent, and I want you guys to host this podcast and make it syndicated. You know what I mean? Something like that. So you never know when that opportunity is really going to show itself, and whether or not we're in a place that we want to do something like that and take it beyond what it is. But I don't know. It's just, again, it's just this when something is that authentic, when something is that raw, it still isn't quite it. I'm looking out the window because I'm thinking about like spring, like I can see buds on the trees, but I don't know exactly what those leaves are all going to look like just yet. So now we're in this position where we're budding and this thing is growing, but what it's actually going to grow into might still be kind of not mysterious, but it's still in such the beginning stages that it's not totally clear yet. And I can say that with the podcast, I can say that with the pandemic, I can say that with North Country Kettlebells. When I think back to being and looking at that ridge and thinking about what I wanted it to grow into, I didn't see a podcast yet.
Right.
But it's because podcasts weren't a big thing.
Right.
Maybe then podcasts, it really didn't even exist as like a podcast, you know what I mean? And maybe the average person couldn't just start like their own radio show essentially. But here I am now, and here are all these elements that I didn't quite see. Or like even 6 years ago when I came across Rev, and did I know that when I was going to be interacting with you in the future, which I knew I was going to be doing, did I know I was going to have a podcast with you? No, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
Right. And so
no.
Again, we get this opportunity to kind of see, that if we want something, we can go towards that, and I can have this dream of what these videos are going to do and who they're going to reach. And I can know that, yes, these people are going to interact with those videos, because there aren't videos like that out. And if you go and you search kettlebell something video, this video is going to come up for you, depending on where you are in the world. Do I know what then that person is going to do with it, or what that's going to mean for me in 10 years?
Yeah.
Not quite yet. I know it's going to mean something, and that something is going to be pretty rad, but
I have so much bubbling up and everything that you just said. And what it was making me think of is sort of the idea of like staying on your grind, and to like, if what you're doing speaks to you, if it brings meaning to your life, keep doing it. And we kind of mention this all the time, because obviously we're spiritual people, and we don't know necessarily like what's in store for us, or who's listening, or who's watching, or 2 years from now, what this content will either have, like, I think, living primarily like in an instant gratification society, people think, I'm going to do this and it's going to go viral, and I'm going to get Insta fame, or this, I'm going to have this business success overnight. And that may be true for some. Some have that experience, and it's definitely possible, and it's out there. But I think for the most part, it's time, attention, consistency, effort, sort of all the things we talk about in terms of like what makes it. I feel like I'm regurgitating some of your video on consistency, right? In kettlebells. I'm pretty sure you're talking about that. Right? The weight used and consistency in reps or something. I was listening.
Yes. I love it.
Right?
It works.
It works.
But I made that video in my living room, not knowing if anybody was going to watch it.
I watched it, and just thinking about that now. And so to kind of just dovetail off of what you last talked about, we're not yet 40. I think amazing things are on the horizon in that decade, and no rush to get there, but I don't fear it at all. I'm excited. And it's like, I just feel like this is part of the journey. It has purpose, and who knows, like you said, maybe another year from now, someone's like, oh man, I came across this podcast and you guys are dynamite, and whatever. It doesn't always, just happen. And I think, again, sort of like this consistency, or if you're, just kind of speaking generally to whoever's listening out there, this may speak to you, Mujib, your sister, like if you're an aspiring writer, like keep writing, self-publish an essay, or, whatever it is, like keep going. And, if you want to be a trainer, if you're working on fitness videos, like just keep putting stuff out there, or keep working with small groups, or, if you're an aspiring chef, like, start small, like, have a few cookouts for friends, like food truck, whatever. But it's got to speak to you. Like if it's bringing you joy, if it's a passion, if it's like, keep going. And you just we can manifest outcomes, right? We've talked about that too. And you just don't really know necessarily like the timing or in what way it's going to bear fruit.
Right. But you do know, if you water it and you curate it and you do everything that you need to do, it's going to bear fruit.
Right.
Period. Like, and if it doesn't, then again, I get into that mind state that, because now I'm thinking about it like a tree, right? So like, here's
Yeah.
an apple tree, and I'm like, and I'm 10 years into, I planted this tree and I've done everything. I fertilized that tree. Okay, it made it through its first year. Now it's made it through its fifth year. Now it's a fruit bearing tree. Um, if the fucking wind blows this tree out of the ground, then I can't control that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I did everything that I could do. I bared the fruit, and I harvested the fruit when the tree bared the fruit, and you know, I took advantage of the tree. I did all the stuff that I was supposed to do, and that's what ended up happening with this tree. It started to bear fruit, and then the wind came and it blew the tree down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I know it's going to work, so I'm going to plant a pear tree now, and maybe I'm going to plant the pear tree on the other side of the house where there's a wind block from that direction, so on and so forth. So, you know, I say all that to say, like, because when and you see this in my face when I stop, if you're watching too, like if you're just listening, then I just paused for a second and looked kind of down to my left. But it's basically like, I know for myself, when I made the very first videos that I ever made, I knew that I was trying to make the videos that I'm making now, but I didn't understand how to get there. I didn't know how to use the cameras. I didn't know how to use the software. I didn't know people were going to want to know I didn't know people were going to want to hear what I had to say on a broader scale than just the people I was working with. I was just trying to showcase the fact that, like, everybody that I work with lifts pretty heavy kettlebells, and just show you that. But I didn't think that I had the words yet to be able to say it, and to be able to eloquently put it out there to make you want to listen to me. But I know that now. And so now it's just about putting one and one together to make the actual product that puts it out there. And do I think that it's going to reach a broader market as well? Yeah, but I still have to craft it to be what I need it to be, and in order to do that. And, you know, when we talk again about how it started versus how it's going, I've done some things myself where I'll look at like my very first Instagram post. You know, I'm fairly new to Instagram for the most part. Like, I'm coming up on my 300th post, right? And I'm like curating it in my mind, like, what's the 300th one going to be like? You know what I mean? And but I remember like my very first Instagram post, and like my first 10 Instagram posts, and even once you get into the Instagram post where I start creating content that is actually delivering information to people, and it's like, it can be like me, I'm sitting in a dark room, I'm talking into my cell phone, you know what I mean? But at the same time, that entire time, I'm working on the exact thing that I'm crafting right now to deliver to y'all. And so, you know, like Sarah just said, like, stick with it, like, stay on your grind, because as long as you stay on it, and as long as you keep yourself going in the direction that you're planning on going, or the direction that you want to go in, all of the elements will start to, it's not like they just deliver themselves. Like, the elements are already there. It's like all the elements that make a cell phone were already here in the beginning of time, but we didn't have context, we didn't have need, we didn't have the resources of mind to put these things together. Like, it was, if you created a cell phone and you gave it to somebody in the Pleistocene era, like, what the fuck is this? Like, this isn't even sharp. I can't throw this at anything. You know what I mean? Like, it's useless. This is a useless thing that you've given me. But now it has so much context. And so, you know, if I think about what we're doing right now, like, it might be small right now, whether it's the podcast, whether it's business, whether it's a dream, no matter what it is, but keep that thing going, because there's gonna be a grand context for it going forward, because there are elements that you don't know that are going to exist then. Like, there are elements that, again, we didn't know there was going to be a pandemic that was going to lead to us with a podcast that was going to have us say something that was going to blow somebody's mind. But there you have it. And when the time came, we were the people that we needed to be able to deliver that. And so, you know, now that I have this opportunity to deliver this information, I also have all the resources to do the thing, and I also have the wherewithal to put it together and deliver it, and I know how to deliver it. But not only that, but now there are platforms for me to deliver it on that weren't actually there before, right? So like I don't know, I love it.
But more importantly, what made me just have my like aha moment was that we are different people. So we've talked about this before, like, you know, I can go back and probably dig into my email and find the very first email communication that you and I shared, and then follow it up with that moment in Feldman's, where, right. And this was definitely, I want to say 2016.
Right. Something like that.
Something like that. 2015, 2016. It was
I'd
a
say
while
it's
ago.
probably 2016, if anything
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
And this wouldn't have happened even if we like hit it off right away and we're like, hey, you want to, let's,
Right.
even if that was kind of possible, which people were doing podcasts back then. So clearly they were possible, but we weren't the people we are today sitting across from each other.
Right.
So even whatever we might have put together back then wouldn't be what we're putting together right now. And so it's kind of trusting that sort of things have a way of coming together. Like this trust that, we kind of had, oops, sorry, everybody. We kind of had these, near misses, right? Like kind of reached out, like almost kind of two ships, like, hey, just doing introductions. And then you ended up at a different facility. And then, but I also didn't have the right kind of facility to be able to bring you in. Like Rev didn't have that capacity. So it's like our timing was sort of off. Like I do believe in, strongly in the timing of the universe. And if we do have that kind of faith and we just kind of keep moving forward, that, the stars aligned, so to speak. And we really sort of reconnected in a way that was like, okay, this is how we can make a difference, or this is how we can, not only connect with one another, but in doing so, help other people. Hopefully people find this helpful in whatever way you define that. But yeah, I love that notion too. And yeah, and who knows, a year or 2, 3, 4 from now with anything. We don't, yeah, the tree, the proverbial wind blowing the tree over was definitely, COVID, for uprooting a lot of folks. And yeah, seeing what possibilities exist, what lessons are there to learn. But
And I hesitate to say this, but it's definitely a way that I live my own life, and it helps me to remember this, because sometimes, like in the now, things do feel so heavy, and not to say that they're not heavy, but our capacity to manage the things that are put on our table or put on our shoulders or put on our plate, like our capacity grows constantly, right? Like my work capacity, even if I just talk about exercise, like my work capacity is going to continue to go up because my understanding is going to continue to go up, so on and so forth. Like what I'm capable of dealing with is going to increase. And so for me right now, with whatever might seem heavy or whatever might seem tough or hard, or like, man, am I ever going to be able to do that? 5 years from now, I'm going to laugh about the fact that I ever even thought that shit was hard. Because like I've said, and I said this in one of our previous podcasts, definitely for me, with my plan, like the way that I've planned what I'm trying to do, in another 5 years, I'm going to have 2 more children. I'm going to be 5 years older. Other people in my life are going to have gone from my life. Other people are going to have come into my life. We're going to have more tragedy. There's going to be more success. There are going to be more failures. You know what I mean? And so if you put that stuff on my plate right now, today, like you said, 6 years ago or whatever, if it was snap your finger, here's your podcast, go. I don't even know this person. What am I going to talk to them about?
I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Versus like, here you are now, you've shared philosophy and you've shared experience and you have this global thing that's happening to everybody. So now talk about it. Oh, okay. Now we have some things to talk about. So, I say all that to say, like, whatever may come from the seeds that we're planting, we'll be ready to harvest when the time comes to harvest, and that, because, and it's springtime in Vermont, so people are starting plants and there's starts that are happening and things like that. People are thinking about their garden plots and stuff like that. But, whatever amount of work that it seems like it's gonna be, you'll be able to bear it. Like, you'll do it. we have unlimited capacity, unlimited potential. And so that's where I go with it.
I love that. And I think that's a fantastic way to end, to wrap up the how it started, how it's going. And how it's going is that we have that unlimited capacity and potential.
Yeah. Yeah.
So keep that mindset, y'all. Yeah.
I'm telling you, like both of those songs came up on a playlist randomly today for me.
Yeah. You know what?
And Mariah Carey's Fantasy featuring ODB also came up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I want to thank everyone for listening, and of course thank Mujib for talking with me on the 30th. Let's Get to a podcast. So yeah, that deserves a little round of applause. That's no small thing.
Right. Yeah.
And we'll keep this up. I mean, I'm still into it, so
I love it.
We look forward to this every week, spending time with you guys. So thank you so much for listening. We always appreciate hearing from you, and we'll see where we take it next week. My name is Sarah.
My name is Mujib.
Have a great day.